Hi! Welcome to a wacky new video. But before we get into it, I regret to inform you that Gordon Freeman is dead. And I
I've been a
killed.
bad boy this year. I'm not gonna get any Christmas gift. Santa's rules are very clear. I get a lump of coal on the 25th. My stocking won't contain no treat or candy cane. You see, a bad boy right here. Santa will skip me on this year's shift.
2023 was a crazy year for me personally. One specific part of that crazy was VR. I mean, I got back into VR chat this year, and that is like I'm reverting to a worse version of myself, I think, but that doesn't matter because a total of 3 people are here to listen to my opinion about the main VR games I played this year. And late last year because a lot came out last minute. On the board today are a couple big uns, 2 of which I expressed interest in last time, that being Firewatch and Stanley Parable, which surprisingly weren't my favorite games I played this year. No, that honor goes to still Left 4 Dead 2. I'm sorry. Some mods that released this year that I was unable to play are the Amnesia The Dark Descent VR remake, which is a full remake of the entirety of the game with brand new built-in VR support. Half-Life 2 got its first M-mod style overhaul called Half-Life 2 VR Unleashed, which adds things like new melee functions, working fists, dual wielding, physical jumping, and difficulty tweaks. A mod that I'm excited to see is the Deus Ex VR mod. And all of these mods are getting consistent updates on the Flat to VR Discord server, the one I talked about last time. Okay, I'm rambling. Let's get into the games I actually played. The Two Forks Firewatch VR mod is a mod created by Raikuparda, whose username is so hard to pronounce they have a short on their channel which is a compilation of people saying it wrong, and I hope I don't make it into the sequel. It is a full VR port of the game Firewatch. Dummy. Firewatch was already a fantastic game, and to put that game in VR was an excellent choice, and it would have easily taken my number 1 spot if I didn't play the game before and know what was coming. I won't spoil it because I highly recommend playing it blind, especially if you're going into it in VR, which I also highly recommend. The port is done extremely well. All the tools you use in-game are transferred seamlessly into VR. The game boasts full motion controller support and a nearly perfect story. It's also one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. It's the perfect game to play in VR.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-winning, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe is one of the stupidest games I've ever played. And I mean that in the best and most endearing way possible because I adore this game. And I also adore its VR mod made by Raikuparda? Yeah, it turns out this person just has the greatest taste on the planet, I guess, because they've made a bunch of VR mods of wonderful and perfect games to be modded into VR. Truly one of the greats in the VR scene. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe is more than just a remake, and honestly, with no spoilers, I say it has enough new content to be called a direct sequel. But it also has all the old content too. Funny enough, there's a Firewatch joke in Stanley Parable, so seeing that forest in VR again, only for it to be the butt of a joke, was a surreal experience. Stanley Parable also boasts full motion controller support, although you only have one Stanley hand. The other hand, at least for me, was a generic VR glove. It didn't take away from the experience at all, I just thought it was a little odd. Everything works perfectly in VR, and it's another must-play.
Tell me, Dr. Freeman, if you can. You have destroyed so much. What is it exactly that you have created? Can you name even one thing? I thought not.
Okay, hear me out. Half-Life 2 got a bunch of new updates, and it deserves its own spot, considering I'm not doing the Half-Life 2 video anymore. Fuck you! Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and Episode 2 both got ported to VR in the same way the original game did. And honestly, they were amazing. Episode 2 was almost as good as the original, in fact. If you enjoyed the original Half-Life 2 VR and you haven't played the episodes yet, why? You're seriously missing out, one person who hasn't played the episodes yet. Stop watching that video and play that shit. It's free. I don't really have much else to say about them. They're good. Play them.
Standard insertion of non-standard specimen. Shut it down. Shutting down. Someone get it out of there. Shut it down. It's not shutting down.
Okay, so I didn't expect this to happen at all, but they did it. The Black Mesa VR mod is a port of the Half-Life fan remake to the Half-Life 2 Episode 2, that's confusing, VR engine, led by Ashok. If you remember my last video, you know I wanted that really bad. And while it's not completed yet, far from it, it's still way better than the Half-Life 1 mod I played, which was impressive, but not very fun to me personally. You can play through most of Black Mesa, albeit with dumber NPCs and enemies, and a distinct lack of retail zen, which is a shame. They're currently working on Beta 3, which I know is adding friendly fire, fuck yeah, and might be adding weapon skins, not weapon mods. They're still the stock Half-Life 2 weapons, they just look like Black Mesa's weapons. I again don't have much to say about this one, other than keep an eye on it. It's currently amazing to play, but I know it can get even better. And I don't know if I can recommend it just yet, considering Beta 3 could release any day now, if it hasn't already by the time I finish this script.
Good morning. You have been in suspension for 50 days. In compliance with state and federal regulations, all testing candidates in the Aperture Science Extended Relaxation Center must be revived periodically for a mandatory physical and mental wellness exercise. You will hear a buzzer. When you hear the buzzer, look up at the ceiling.
Portal 2 is, once again, as per Valve usual, sex disguised as a video game. But not like real sex. Portal is how you think sex would feel before you've actually had it. and like before you realize it's not as impressive or wonderful as you thought it would be. Portal 2 VR is a port led by Gistix, based on the source code of the Left 4 Dead 2 VR mod, which we already know is perfection, and it's pretty good. I really like Portal 2, and actually being there is even cooler. You have one motion-controlled hand and access to the entire library of workshop chambers, as well as the original game. The workshop chambers include an almost full remake of Portal 1, meaning both of the games are playable. Portal Stories Mel is also playable, albeit a bit less polished. It's another must-play if you have a VR and Portal 2 already. It's great. That's really all I can think of. There are a couple games I could talk about, but I either already did, or it was VR chat, and no. Hopefully next year we can find a game that surpasses the perfection that is Left 4 Dead 2 VR. In the meantime, this is where I get off. To do anything else other than work on the Half-Life 2 video, fuck that!